Hello, my name is Nick Lafleur, and you're listening to the Age of Agility podcast by QuickBase, the show where we talk to people who manage some of the world's most complex projects. In this episode, we're joined by Robert Penney. Rob is a National Director of Continuous Improvement for Skanska, where he's been managing projects for the construction industry for over 14 years. He joins us to share some of his insights on balancing unique project needs for construction projects in different geographies while focusing on the standardization of construction practices and workflows. We'll also spend some time talking about building a culture that prioritizes safety and ethics as part of their plan for continuous improvement. Welcome to the show, Robert. Glad to see you.
Thanks, Nick. Happy to be here.
Good talking to you. How have you been? What's new?
I've been very well. Enjoying the summer, trying to keep cool. All good things.
Yeah, there's a big heat wave in the U.S. right now, and finally broke over here in Boston. I don't know about where you are.
Still extra hot in Philly.
We like to kind of just start learning a little bit about you. So tell us, who's Rob, and what do you do, and what should we know about it?
Sure. So, first off, I'm the National Director of Continuous Improvement for Skanska. That's what brings me here. I've been with the company for 14 years now. And I focus on processes and people. Being we're in the construction industry, our construction projects are built by people, for people, and we use a lot of processes, whether it's putting work in place or managing the back end of the work. So my day-to-day is meeting with project teams on site, in offices, leading workshops, in person, virtually, and then also a lot of travel. I'm originally from New Jersey, and I'm based out of Philadelphia now. But I grew up in Skanska as a field engineer, working in Jersey, Pennsylvania, California, the Bay Area specifically, and then Seattle and the Pacific Northwest as well. So I could have made my rounds and
you got to see a little bit of everything there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's something that really stuck out to me when we were talking initially is how you have this kind of varied experience in all these different geographies, but all working for the same organization. So it's kind of an interesting perspective you've got there. So could you just tell us a little bit about Skanska? What kind of projects do they work on?
Sure. So Skanska, we're an international construction company. So I work specifically for Skanska USA Building. So anything vertical. We also do commercial development, civil projects as well, but I'm, as I said, vertical. So we're talking hospitals, stadiums, data centers, higher education, K through 12 schools. So a lot of varying degrees of projects. In the US, we're 22 offices, believe I'm correct on that count, and roughly a $5 billion portfolio of work on revenue yearly. So it's a lot of different projects and a lot of large spread. You could probably guess the office locations, large metropolitan cities across the United States.
Yeah, that's no joke. $5 billion.
Yeah, it is a lot. It's a lot, which comes with a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, definitely, right? With something that big. So when you said vertical earlier, you meant like tall buildings, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, that was a little bit of construction jargon I threw out there. So civil is going to be roads and bridges, so horizontal work. And when we say vertical, it's buildings. Yeah.
Okay, that's really
but
cool.
Also can go down too. Can go in the ground.
Sure, like a parking structure or something, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Cool. No, that's good to know. I hadn't heard that one before, and it makes a lot of sense now you explain it. So going back to kind of your role at Skanska and kind of what your day-to-day looks like, if let's say, I work at QuickBase, and let's say we're going to partner with you to build a building, how would we interact?
Yeah, it all starts with a need and value. As QuickBase or any customer, there's a need for a new building, whether it's a hospital, for the community and also for the hospital network itself, if it's a new building for office and employees, or if it's a school to ultimately house students and teachers. There's ultimately a need that it kicks off with, and then a value to the owner or the client who's getting it built. So we really start there. It's that outreach and understanding, what are we looking to build? Why are we looking to build? And then with Skanska, we say, okay, Here's our experience and our history of buildings. Here's how we could provide, value to you.
Cool. So you're really there at the start, kind of just like making sure that from the get-go, just like really kind of approaching this methodically.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then also, it's the reason people will reach out for an expert is try to give some input and opinion on maybe different solutions you hadn't thought of, or a new option that might work even better, or a different interpretation. Yeah. So it's really a partnership between the builder, the designer, and the owner that we work for. It's not so much separate.
Yeah, no, that's really great. And that, I mean, that must be difficult to manage too with so many clients. So, kind of thinking about kind of your field of expertise, continuous improvement, that's something that we talk about a lot in the technology space, but I think it can vary depending on where you work. So, could you tell me a little bit about what that looks like in your day to day, or what that means at Skanska?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, I'll use the quote. I'm sure we've all heard it, but there's no improvement without standardization. If you don't have a standard, there's no basis for improvement. So we start with a standard and a quality of work. So we have processes from how we pour concrete, how we hang steel, how we commission buildings, and then how we turn it over to the owner. That being said, I mean, there's so many variables in today's, I don't even want to just say market and construction, in the world. You're talking technology, you're talking people. There's always going to be new, just exciting, different, better ways to do work. So for continuous improvement, getting back to the question, it's all about empowering our people to know that they can make change, that we are here to support them to make change, and to help them along the way to actualize that change into actually happening. Or it doesn't go into implementation, but we explored. We did some research, not necessarily failed, but we now know and are better for it. So continuous improvement is all about that empowerment and encouragement side.
Cool. And it doesn't sound too much different than how it kind of plays out here either. It's probably just the different ways that this work gets done that differentiates.
It really is. And I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too much, but I think it's very exciting. Like in the two different spaces, you look at waterfall versus the agile and the iterative function. It's very much the same with construction projects as well. We have really adopted that as well in continuous improvement. So we're always looking, plan, do, check, act. How can we improve? What was the plan like? How did it go? So it's really adopted. What I believe came from software development is making its way into construction. It's pretty exciting.
That is really exciting, and it's funny because construction is like probably not one of those industries you think of when you think about innovation. But there's so much work going into it because these projects. It was something you told me when we met, and I've been learning more about is how construction projects are completely wildly different from each other, and even in the same city. But I feel like when you take that idea and then expand it across, the country or the world, like your company's doing, there's probably a lot more variables to take care of. How do you incorporate?
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that? How do you manage that?
Yeah. It's, we're probably going to hear this one a lot. I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but for me, I come back to value. I feel like that is where the whole road of continuous improvement for my journey and construction as well is, we have so many different parties involved: owners, designers, contractors, subcontractors, the end users. So it's all about, what is the intent of this building? What value is it going to give to the end users? What value does the architect see in seeing their vision and their design come to fruition? The builders and the crafts folks out in the field building, it's an art. What are they trying to do? Put the best work in place possible. So at the beginning of all, whether it's a full project or just a back end process, it's all about, what does success look like, and defining that. So for me, if I geek out, talking lean and continuous improvement, I'm really big on conditions of satisfaction in exercise, to understand what does success look like. Um, Using choosing by advantages to make the best decisions possible to try and get there. defining value. So really focusing on those. It seems very basic, but that is always where I start, because if you understand where you're trying to go, generally all the parts and pieces will come together. But boy, even if you're organized and you don't have that North Star, it can get really hairy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm sure we've all been in meetings like that where it's clear that the goal is not clear to everybody.
Yep, yep. That alignment,
Yeah.
so key.
What does that look like, when you start talking about job sites across, in different geographic areas in different cities? What sort of things do you need to control for there?
Gosh, oh, there's a great number of variables. So I'll get started. So first, you have your basics. There's always, you've got a time. Time is an issue. You've got logistics. Where is it? As in the center of the city? Is it outside? Is it maybe at a greenfield site where there's not many limitations? Those are always wonderful. Um, and then you have money. So your time, location, and money are always big factors in the beginning. But then you come towards weather conditions. What part of the country or the world are you building in? Is it going to be raining most of the time up in the Pacific Northwest, or is it going to be sunny the whole time down in Southern California? Those large impacts to how we plan to build a project. And then, and I think that, I'm mentioning this last, but it's one of the largest ones, the people. There's folks who are going to plan it, who are going to build it, who are going to move into it. And we all know the diversity of people in the world. It makes a large difference on what we're building it for and how it's going to be used and who's going to build it. So, yeah, there's a lot of variables. It's a lot.
No, I mean that's you listed a ton of them there, and that is like
Yeah.
not no joke. And we talk about at QuickBase we hear a lot about some of our customers who are in the construction space and the building space, and they talk a lot about these things too, right? And like how time and budget constraints or time is ultimately the biggest thing that costs money, right? So it's because
Yeah.
it's people,
Yeah.
it's equipment, it's permits, licenses, whatever it might be. But and when you start talking about kind of like, oh, is it going to be wet or dry? Like that's going to impact, how long it takes to pour a basement or do something with concrete.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like it goes back to that value and and what does success look like, because you can really understand like, okay, so if time is most important, then maybe we use a different option that costs a little bit more money, or maybe we use a different I don't want to say level of quality, but a different finish type to give you the same value, and then we find ways to it's not compromise. It's more value engineering. How can we deliver that best product that delivers all that value?
Yeah.
Um, with yeah,
And kind of going back to this repeating theme here of like going back to the value, going back to the goal. Um, what's kind of top of mind when you're thinking about these projects? What are the values that you always keep in mind, when planning these projects?
say honestly, purpose and impact. Really going back to one of the reasons I do like working for Skanska so much. We build what matters. We're very community centric and impact centric, knowing that the work and the buildings we're putting up are actually impacting the end users and the communities. So I really tried to start there and understand when you enter into a construction project, much like I would imagine a team at QuickBase, or a software development team, you're deeply passionate about the work you're doing. You're immersed within the project, and there's a lot of care. There's a lot of meaning behind the work for those people. So it's understanding, what is that? What does the design mean to the architect? What will this building mean to the company? What will the trades folks out in the field, like, what area of the country you're in? Is it union, non-union? There's so many. I really try to start there. I think that's most important. And once you figure that out, and maybe I'd like to think this is the superpower, you know how to communicate with everyone. You know what's important to them, and you know what to respect, and they know vice versa for you. So once you have that harmony, then you can start tackling, well, this is a really complex design. This is a really tight schedule. We need to work on the budget. Once you get that alignment, all that falls into place.
That's a really interesting point you bring up, which is like it's not just about getting everyone on the same page. It's about being able to like kind of meet them on the same level, right? Being able to speak their language a little
Yeah.
bit and understand what, is motivating them or driving them or causing them pain.
Yeah. This might be a hot take, but I know this from experience. At the end of a project, very rarely, if you're working for an owner or a design team, if you gave pushback in the beginning of the project and said, I don't know that's the right wall panel system to use. I don't know if that's the right foundation. It's actually going to cost a little more, but it's going to provide this value. At the end of the project, very rarely is anyone upset with that. They're actually happy that we're talking about this. It's the reason you hire experts. It's to have that back and forth, that intellectual jousting to get to the right solution. So I always find that doing that up front, everybody's always much happier in the end having known and talked about it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's kind of goes back to the saying like stitch in time, right? Like it's so like just
Yeah,
making sure that you're kind of raising the questions and the concerns at the right,
yeah,
early in the process, so that way it's at least understood.
yes, yeah,
It's really funny, the more I talk to people managing these projects and talk in different industries and things, the more similarities I tend to find between the approach. And it's
yeah.
really just, it really comes down to understanding like how people receive information, how they communicate, and then being able to like use use that information to communicate clearer or better or whatever it might be.
We're seeing a great deal of folks coming from non-construction engineering backgrounds joining the industry because you're right. The skill sets really do translate well when you get into project management, product management, managing teams, managing deliverables. You start to realize, well, wow, I have a specific interest in construction and design. I could apply those and come from tech. I could come from accounting and finance. So it's been really, I feel it's opened up a door for people who are passionate about building, but maybe didn't come from that background. And you really see that come through in their work.
Um, that makes me think, actually, I never really asked you this. What got you involved in the construction industry? How'd you get started there?
Well, I'm a more traditional path. So I'm at my father actually worked for Skanska. He was a general superintendent, so in the field.
Cool.
Um, and all my uncles are foremen as well. We got plumbers and carpenters. So it was kind of in the I was always really interested in it, and I grew up making, little woodworking projects. I took auto shop and wood shop, and then eventually I went to college for at Drexel in Philadelphia for construction management and business.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So I started off in the field engineering and project management side, and then I found out this whole world of continuous improvement.
Hey, yeah, no, I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
funny, yeah, and I love that it's, something that you've always been interested in and always passionate about, and it's cool that you're able to, I don't know, grow and change your career within that space too.
Yeah, that really has been. It has been great and also interesting to see how you can find a new niche even within the area you're existing in. It's pretty cool.
So we talked a lot about kind of the how do you get ready for a project? How do you get everyone on board? How do you do this? But once you kind of have all that buy-in, you get everyone on board. What role does technology play in tracking and maintaining and reviewing how these processes work?
Oh, it's huge. That's huge. I mean, tech has been such a benefit in the construction industry, and the adoption has not been without its challenges, and we're still finding ways to use it. But the more it becomes integrated, the better the results we're seeing from it. So, what's a good example?
So we talked about kind of the, like you said, the superpower, the soft skills here, which is like getting people on board, getting clear with goals and how things are going to get done, and getting that buy-in. But how do you, as somebody kind of overseeing continuous improvement across the country, be able to get like visibility in how a job site in Seattle might be doing?
That is where technology comes in for us. And you just said the one word there, visibility, and the connection to the field now with technology is better than it's ever been. Um, for example, our folks in the field have iPads, so they have the latest to date current drawings in the field, which sounds simple, but is a huge problem not having the most current design documents. Um, we've got 360 cameras that are doing inspections before we close up a wall. So we're documenting what that looks like. Um, in the times of over the past 2 years when we had to be virtual, there's cameras on site that are documenting the job site that you can log into from a remote location and say, hey, I want to walk down to the end of the corridor on the second floor. And you can do that. So that connection to the field has been huge. In addition, the so for me and the company monitoring from at a national level, but then the vice versa, our field folks can now ask questions, um, take a picture, mark it up, and send it back, and get an immediate response from design teams on, "Hi, is this connection supposed to look like that?" So just that ability to send information, not without its challenges in organization, but it's an access that we did not have even 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting how much technology's accelerated in the workplace over the last few
Oh
years,
yeah.
and that especially with the pandemic and everything. But yeah, hearing more and more about iPads and job sites and these sort of things, it must solve a lot of problems that were you know previously because of just human error on paper processes. I can imagine.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, a very simple one, using digital contracts. Massive when you think of FedExing and all the waste with the paper and hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents. It was it's time, it's money, it's effort. I mean, it's amazing, just these small, I don't want to say small, yet simple technological tools we have now that just make such a huge impact.
The technology offers so much for you and the folks in the field and probably everybody at Skanska, but are there any challenges getting folks on board with new processes like that or platforms?
There is. And yes, there are. And you might be surprised I'm going back to it. Value. Leading with that, it's huge. With the new technology we have, it provides great value, but we have to understand that folks using it need to input good data, outcomes, good data. Um, and that takes effort. So when we're asking our project teams to engage in something that maybe is beneficial for the company at large, it's making it clear that we're actually going to be able to visualize this. This is now going to give you insight into every other project going on. Not selling, but just communicating. Why are we collecting, and what's the benefit we're going to gain from it? I think the most positive and best way I've seen for adoption of technology in construction is that you find problems and then apply a solution to them, as opposed to finding a solution and then looking for the problem. Because the project teams, they can sense that right away. And they're saying, this seems like someone just wants to use technology on the project. But if you take the time to understand and say, okay, what issues is this project team having? And how can I find a tool that we know works, and help them out? And that the second you do that, adoption, I think, becomes, I don't want to say seamless, but much simpler. So it's really understanding the day-to-day work that the project teams do, and then finding the tools that exist out there to help them out. So that's the number one key to adoption in construction.
Yeah, Big surprise.
Yeah.
Leading with the value,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know. It's
Yeah.
even with
Yeah.
technology, you know, you still need to address that human component, and that's unfortunately one of the
Yeah.
sticking points I think in a lot of organizations. But
The second part is the ever-changing technology. So continuous improvement processes are my world and near and dear. And when you build a process that involves a technology, and then that technology is updated or completely changed, and now it's a new platform, you change vendors, you start to realize, oh wow, there's a wrench in this awesome process we had. So to sort of, I don't want to say combat that, we've started to develop our processes on what is this process doing? What does this successful process look like? Where's the value? And then we plug the tech into those processes. And we found that that prevents us from being hindered when a technology changes or when a platform changes, or if something new comes along and we want to use it, we have that ability to switch out because we're not so tied. That's been a challenge, but then also something we found a way to work around.
you gotta stay flexible, I guess,
Yeah. Oh, there's so
huh?
much cool stuff out there. It's like we don't want to miss out on
Yeah,
anything.
no, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's something that I think gets overlooked. You know, continuous improvement is kind of seen as this like cyclical, you know, how do we do it? How can we do better? Kind of over and over again. But it actually is also about incorporating kind of the constant change that's out there in the world too.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we could go into a whole low code, no code with that coming in now. I'm very excited about it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
it's
that's
it's exciting
I'm happy
times.
to talk to you about that anytime. But you know, let's keep it on you though. I don't think we need to talk about QuickBase too much here. You know, so a few questions I've got for you. Something that we talked about a little bit um, when we first met was kind of the focus on safety and ethics in as part of continuous improvement, as part of project management. And I'd love for you to expand on that a little bit more. Um, and just, I think like understanding like what role does that play, if it's a complicating factor, if it makes things simpler, what is, you know, what's the value?
For me personally, the value is the purpose and the meaning. There is a reason, plug for Skanska is like, I think this past year we're number 17 on the Forbes or Fortune Change the World list. So, and that's not just construction
Yeah.
companies, that's all organizations. So the fact that we build buildings, but there's also such a deep focus on we build what matters and we're actually impacting society, that for me, it's that purpose and meaning of this is why I do what I do. So now we're talking about we want to work ethically, we want to build safe, we care for life. You now have these values that we live by, and the folks within our organization, I'd say it's deeply entrenched in who the people are in and outside of the company. Getting back to the question, it makes the work more complex. So we need to be thoughtful and careful when we build a project in Seattle. Are we being salmon safe, and is there runoff going into the waters? It's extremely important. When we're building near wetlands, are we impacting? Is that like are we impacting the environment? The carbon footprint, what is our use? Are we recycling materials? Is there a lead rating on this building? Is there enough bike parking spaces and electrical vehicle hookups? There's so many avenues I think you can go down now, which makes it more complex, sure, but I don't know, arguably a more complex project or problem is like more fun to work
Oh
on.
yeah, we love complexity here,
Yeah.
and I think something we talk
Yeah.
about a lot is like how we just live in a world that is inherently complex, and so it's not about eliminating that necessarily. It's about making it easier to understand.
Yes. Yeah. That and being able to see it. I love that clarity of the complexity. Put it all out
Yeah.
there and then sort from there.
You brought up some really interesting kind of like factors or considerations for, you know, like with the salmon or being near wetlands, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, what are some Just curious, kind of like what are some other like really specific regional considerations?
Ooh, gosh. Noise is a huge one, depending on where you're working on. Um, Light pollution. Building data centers generally aren't in densely populated areas, so you have light pollution and weekend work considerations. Uh, the salmon safe is a big one. Airports are also very specific. We LaGuardia and Moynihan Train Hall are two really big projects we're pretty proud of that were just completed, and you've just got uh, a whole host of things to consider when you're talking about TSA and airplanes and transit, and it's just
I can
yeah,
imagine Moynihan is Penn Station, right? Yeah,
yeah,
I was
yeah.
just there a few weeks ago, and it's beautiful now.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
beautiful, isn't it? It's
but
fantastic.
definitely no small
Yeah,
feat. Huge space.
no, no. And that is another one I really enjoy when we're able to work on them is restorations and landmarks. So you're talking about preserving the existing structures in some sense, but then also like like Moynihan building a totally new and updated facility within that. So it's really it goes back to that when you have the right people working on it, that problem all of a sudden becomes very interesting. It's a complex to solve, but it's engaging.
Yeah, I mean, you strike me as somebody who gets really excited by a difficult problem to solve.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I like it. I do.
Um, yeah, I mean, so that's most of the questions I had for you. I feel like we learned so much about what you do at Skanska and, like what that looks like, what you think about, what keeps you up at night. Um, but tell me a little bit about yourself, what's going on in your life, and, looking forward to anything coming up this summer or at work or on your own.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I just turned 35 this year, so I've got three physical challenges on the list. I'm doing a triathlon, an ultra marathon, and then a 100-mile bike race.
Wow.
So I have that coming up in the next over the next 3 months.
All
Yeah.
of them are in the
Yeah.
next
It's a
three months?
little yeah,
Wow. All
yeah.
right.
In end of August, end of September, end of October, and then I'm done for holiday season. I'm good.
Yeah, I think you'll have burned
Yeah.
off all the calories that you'll need.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, and then for work, truly, being at Skanska for 14 years, I'd say now more than ever, the leadership we have at the company is has never been better, and it's really exciting to see the company embrace continuous improvement, and just we're doubling down on doing the work the best we can, and it's really exciting.
yeah.
There's nothing more in my mind for my career and work life that to actually have deep care and deep meaning, and then to see that reflected in the other folks I work with. So that's super exciting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, none of these projects are going to get less complicated. So it's good to
Yeah,
hear that
exactly.
the
Yeah,
organization sees
bring them
that
on.
it is yeah,
Yeah.
contributing for you. Well, thanks for your time. Really appreciate having you here today. Is there anywhere folks can kind of keep up with what you're up to?
Absolutely. Find me on LinkedIn. That's where I post most of my stuff. And yeah,
Cool. Well, thanks so much again for joining us today, Rob. Really appreciate your time and just learning more about what you do. Um, and for all of you out there, if you want to keep up with us, please look up Age of Agility on your favorite podcast player, or you can go to quickbase.com/podcast. Don't forget, you can keep up with Rob on LinkedIn. We'll put a link to his profile in the show notes. And we'll catch you in a couple weeks to learn more from folks managing the complex projects that are reshaping our world. Thank you.